Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hanson, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, Don't Die Rusty Nation, Ricky and I have a guest that I've known. I met Sloane Brown about 10 years ago at a total archery challenge, and we've been acquaintances. And like I said, you go year after year after year, and you get to be friends. And then I'm going to just let Sloane Brown tell you who he is. He was working for Yeti at that time, and I'm going to just let him introduce of what he does now because he's a man of many talents.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think I know a little bit about a lot, maybe, or I don't know. But I basically what I do for work now is I call it community marketing, and it's kind of like a grassroots way to grow brands. And I was fortunate enough to work at Yeti and worked under a guy named Bill Neff who taught me a whole lot about it. And basically, it's kind of the sports marketing model where you're working with athletes and organizations and kind of plug in brands and products into those people. Really, it's four buckets: people, places, events, and organizations. Plugging into those entities that are relevant and influential, and kind of organically and creatively growing the brand in a very authentic and kind of grassroots way. But I'm doing that now. I basically took the Yeti playbook, and I'm helping some younger brands. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I like your, well, and it makes me happy because then I see you at some shows and get to see you more than just at a total archery challenge.
It's the TAC thing has been so cool. And honestly, there's brands and clients of mine that were born out of Total Archery Challenge. Like, it is such a big and powerful entity.
Yeah.
And it truly is a family. Like, we've spent our summers together. If you're like
Yes.
going full bore on TAC, you're on the road all summer, just about.
Roadies.
Yeah, and it definitely because it'd be like, I mean, Ashley Kurtenbach and Jesse Kurtenbach and I, we were going to at the time it was you go from Terry Peak to Salt Lake to end in Big Sky, and we're doing that in roughly 3 weeks a row, just about, and so you just keep on adding and adding and adding, like we're gypsies, archery gypsies.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And things like don't really skip off. It's like it's such a good crew of people that are so rooted in something that they're like passionate about. And for a lot of people, it's their entire summer. Like, it is the keystone, cornerstone summer vacation. And everybody's so present when you're there because you're shooting bows and you're just hanging out. And I think people are just genuinely grateful to have that moment,
Well,
in a digital world.
but and you have you done? Well, I saw the last time I saw you actually. Well, I was at Total Archer Challenge, but a year ago or so, you were at the Western Hunting Expo with Montana Knives, talking to him anyway. And here's a funny one because Brandon Lilly, Bert Soren, and we went down the mountain together. So you got 4 hours, 4.5 hours, and we get to talk. And I come down, and then Brandon takes me over to the Montana Knife. They had a little booth, which is amazing to me. They have a little booth, and Brandon says, "You need to buy one of those knives." And I got one. Now I have three. They're killing me, man. They're killing me.
That was the client that I referenced that was literally born out of Total Archery Challenge. They launched, they got all their brand ambassadors. Their entire network and existence was basically born out of Total Archery Challenge in it. And they're an amazing, like, big brand now, kind of a household brand in the hunting industry.
Yeah,
I really like, the marketing plan and everything that they have going on. And I really like what they got going there. I unfortunately don't have one of their knives because I have a friend who's a knife maker. So if I was to buy something else, I think, I'd feel too bad. So,
Yeah. No,
so I have
I
yet to
think
get a
everybody
Montana
appreciates
knife, but
your excuse. We should gift you one. But we
But
totally
no,
respect the knife makers. Josh Smith, the founder, he's a master bladesmith himself, so he has
yeah.
tons of friends in that world, and
Mhm.
there's plenty
yes.
to go around for everyone.
And it was fun because so then I got an elk and then I'm holding up the back straps and I sent the picture to Brandon and Brandon says you need to send that to Josh because I had my knife out there
Mm.
and I did send it to Josh and it was funny because he's that it's just so cool how many people take the Montana Knife Company's knives and show that stuff, and they're all used in the field, and like I said, and also they're the nicest people in the world you can meet.
Well, and that last point you made, to me, it feels like consumers care more and more about where they're spending their money and what those people stand for. And I think a lot of MKC's success has come from that story, like the American made, wanting to support a guy chasing his passions and his dreams, paired with a really great product. But
Exactly.
it's bigger. When you're buying that knife, you're buying more than a knife, because consumers have thousands of options now,
Yeah.
And and actually, you just got me thinking, and I do think sometimes way out of the box, but it's kind of like that mountain man having that Hawken rifle. Now you have a Montana Knife Company knife, and it's like you'll have to pry my hands off my knife to get it, kind of thing. Like what was his name? Jack in a mountain man. I can't think of his name in uh, with Robert Redford. Jeez, Jeremiah Johnson. You know how they had to
yeah,
pull the, but it was a Hawken rifle. Kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. And
So
it's what's the most ironic thing about that is that's a 3-year-old brand. You know,
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
it's cool.
So
But well, technically, no. Josh's mom had him file the LLC when he was like 20 years old, but
yeah,
they didn't do anything for a while. But
Mm.
no,
yeah,
I mean it's they're basically to kind of tie the knot on what I do for work. It's kind of a soft sell, and it's building cultures around brands that kind of stand for something bigger and represent something more than just selling a product. It's a lifestyle that we're selling.
yep.
And
So
Yeti was the best at that.
They were. I mean, that's the other thing I have a ton of is you go to a Total Archery Challenge and you go to an after party. I probably have a cup a month from going to all the parties to get it. You go get a cup, and then my wife loves it anyway, and because she drinks a lot of tea, so she
Yeah,
gets
if
a
you're in the
Yeti
hunting
cup
or
a
fishing
day.
industry, yeah, if you're in the industry, your cupboard probably has just an assortment of Yeti cups that you got at after parties.
Exactly. So I'm gonna, like I said, I talked to you a little earlier, and you and I, like I said, I'd go in the Yeti booth tent and chat with you a little bit here and there, and we got to know each other. But I didn't know your story, and I mean, how you got to where you are and stuff like that before then, and I just want to just touch on this because you have a lot more interesting stuff going on right now that I've seen on your social media pages. But it, the thing that really touched me about you, Sloane, is the when we were at, I think it was Big Sky when the movie that the Elk Foundation put out, Saving Grace, came out, and that touched me. And you know what? It's funny how you become your friends, and then you gain more respect in 15 or 20 minutes of that film that I had for you. Than it just touched me. And that's what Don't Die Rusty is about. It's about chasing your dreams, and it's about being better, bettering yourself. And I just that movie that touched me because I didn't know that you had gone through the addiction part.
Hmm.
I mean, it is an amazing thing, and I have to give you kudos for standing up and putting that out there.
Yeah, it was. I got invited on that hunt. I think the hunt started on a Sunday, and I'm pretty sure I got invited on the Thursday night before, and I was brand new at Yeti. I think I was like 3 or 4 months into the job. And
Holy
I got
moly.
the phone call. Yeah, I got the phone call from RMEF saying like, "Hey, we had a last minute cancellation on our partner hunts." And Yeti at the time was like the official cooler, I think, cooler and drinkware of Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. It was after the NRA debacle, and we were like really doubling down on our hunting efforts to show that hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're a pro hunting company, and we have been.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the invite, and like I'm immediately like kind of my moral compass is thrown off. I'm like, I've never been like a fan of kind of the marketing guys that put themselves out there. Like I felt like my
Mm-hmm.
job was to put the brand ambassadors out there, and and so I called my boss, Bill Neff, the guy that hired me and that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And I was like, hey, dude, I got this invite. And when the RMEF guy called me, he said there's a 330-inch minimum on bulls. And it's an archery elk hunt smack dab in the middle of September on private land in New Mexico. And so I was like, whoa, like this is it's a $15,000 hunt, if not 20 now.
Mhm.
It's a dream hunt at a private lodge, like a beautiful place, the UU Bar Ranch. It's an iconic ranch. But so I called him and he's like, dude, you should absolutely go. The idea was for me to be the representative and to kind of talk about Yeti and our conservation efforts and what we do. And so he's like, absolutely go. He's like, don't ever lose this moral compass. I remember him saying that to me. And I was like, cool, got it. And so I went down there with full intentions of just kind of doing the standard, like, oh, Yeti, we do this with our Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. We're the official cooler and drinkware. And I'm like, man, I don't know how, if I'm going to pull 7 minutes out of that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how. And we were just sitting around camp one night talking, and I think everybody was at dinner and people were having beers and I didn't have a beer. And somebody asked me, if I drink or whatever. And I started telling them my story, and the producer for the film and the videographer was like, dude, he's like, you should tell that story instead of talking about Yeti and conservation. And I was like, all right, cool. Yeah. Like I'm an open book. I kind of always have been. I got sober in August of 2012 and had a really bad heroin addiction, IV heroin. Like grew up upper middle class family. Parents were in healthcare, medicine. I just never in a million years thought I would have ended up that way. But so we had an awesome hunt. Like I still look at the cell phone footage on my phone from that hunt, just bugles popping off everywhere. We were right in the middle of a rut ball, like every day, and pretty easy terrain to navigate, like just prime conditions. And the very last day, like it was hard because they were so selective about the bulls we could kill. And the very last day, we saw some elk down low, and I ended up getting into like 67 yards, kind of by miracle, to this bull that just a rad bull. He ended up taping out at 367 inches, which was the biggest bull
Yeah.
that I'll ever kill.
Wow.
And I made an awesome shot, 67 yards. He died right in front of me. I started crying like a baby on the camera, but we didn't do any like interviews until after the hunt. And the next day we just plopped a Yeti cooler down on the field, and they set up the cameras, and they asked me a few questions to get going, but I just kind of started talking like I'm doing right now. And I've told my story so many times, through this journey that I kind of go on autopilot. And so I did it, wrapped
Yep.
it up, left the hunt, got the elk mounted, did the whole thing,
Yep.
and was just kind of going about my life and didn't think a whole lot of it. And I got an email one day with a rough cut like 8 months later, and I was sitting in the office. And I remember looking at it and being like, whoa, like it's heavy, and there's needles
Yeah.
dropping on the floor and people falling
Yeah.
out. And like a lot of that is all reenactment stuff.
Oh
But
yeah.
I was like, whoa. And it scared me. Like I got really scared. And because it was like, it was a couple things. It felt like I was losing control of my own story and like totally putting it out there and like really vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
scared. But then also I was like, man, it's heavy. And I'm like, I don't know how this is going to reflect on Yeti, you know? And I was like, I was worried about that. And so I gave them some minor feedbacks about like a quote or something, and maybe just told them like, man, like maybe dial it back a little bit on this or something, or it was something along my story that
Yeah.
I think was maybe inaccurate. But
Yeah.
I went and shared it with Bill Neff, the guy that hired me, my boss, and I was like, Bill, I don't know if we should put this out there. And he's like, dude, he's like, if you get any blowback, he's like, I will fight to the grave for you. And I was like, all right, like it was still scary, but I was like, cool, let's go. And then it came out, I don't know, 3 or 4 months later, the next summer.
Yeah.
And we premiered it at Salt Lake or the Park City Total Archery Challenge
Yep.
to a packed house room. I mean, there must have been
Yep.
600 people in that room. It was crazy.
Hmm.
And I remember the lady sitting down. There was a lady, I was in the second row, and I was like, this is so weird seeing my fat face on the screens all around me. And I was like, I genuinely don't like being the center of attention like that. And I'm just kind of like sitting there, like,
Yep.
And the film ends and the credits roll, and she turns around with tears running down her face. And she's like, my son's in rehab right now.
Oh.
And I like that the message, the story gave him a little bit of hope, and it was just like story after story like that. And I just like, I don't know if there's anybody else left on planet Earth that isn't affected in one way or another by addiction, either a loved one, somebody they know, or and the more I get into it, I kind of believe that addiction is a spectrum and we've all got something,
Oh.
It's just like where you draw the lines. But the whole story arc of that film is kind of like my journey and how I got sober, and how the outdoors and nature and that community and that pursuit kind of kept me connected and kept me sane through that journey of sobriety. And it wasn't the only thing. Like there was a lot of other things that I had to do, and it takes a lot of work and sacrifice and changes. But it was the thing. It was where I saw God,
Mm-hmm.
But
and that's a cool thing, because and that's kind of been our centerpiece roughly in most of our podcasts that we've done, episodes we've done up to so far, is how not only those things outside, but the wilderness and being outside, I mean outside of being outside, I should say, but the four walls of a room don't help us as much as being outside and be able to talk to people, because we've talked about this before, and another is like, when you're outside, you have more freedom to talk. You don't have to feel like you have to talk because everybody's moving, or you're just out there and you get to talk to God, or yell or scream or whatever you need to do to try to figure out how to change or make yourself better.
we're animals.
Yeah.
Animals are meant to be outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We are not meant to be inside staring at screens and doing that. Like, I think that, I just think that humans, there's a quote that we used, or maybe we didn't use it in a Yeti commercial, but it was, humans and nature represent the best of human nature. And that is so true.
Well, it's 100% true, because I think I mean, like you said, we when we were talking earlier, the TAC thing has become a family, and it's not shooting rifles, it's shooting bows, and which I mean, in that we don't have we don't have any earmuffs on. Everybody gets to talk, and you get to learn from people. You get to talk to whoever's in your group, and then you get to the bottom, and then you talk to whoever's down there, and you just get to learn. And everything is outside.
Mm-hmm.
And then the views.
Like, I guarantee you there's more brand collaborations, marketing ideas, hunts planned, just general output at Total Archery Challenge, at a single Total Archery Challenge, then I'd put it up against ATA, Western Hunt Expo. Like that's just where the magic happens. And I say this all the time. I'm like getting to the point in my career now where I'm kind of leading teams, and I tell people under me that are on my community teams, I'm like, your best work is done out in the field with people, not not on your email inbox. You've got to do that stuff, but the best work and the creativity flows when you are connected and doing something motion in the field.
Because it's all about relationships, and the relationship isn't on the screen or in the email because there's no emotion there. It's about being together with that person and talking to them in person.
Here's a fun one for you. I think about this a lot. What if when COVID broke out, what if instead of telling everybody to stay inside and stay home, what if they told everybody to go outside? We knew pretty early on that it couldn't spread.
Yeah, very true. That
Right.
it would have been. It's an interesting thought.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think general happiness would have been better. That's probably for certain.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
and it's
true.
and it's true because actually, probably I have to say during the COVID time period, I was probably the happiest I've ever been in a long time because I was outside more. I mean, that's when I did my climb up Crow Peak 100 times. That's when but then you were going other places to do that too. And I mean, I was outside a lot. I was never home because I was outside because I didn't want to miss a day or miss a sunrise or miss breathing fresh air.
That's the mindset that it's newer to me, but it's what I'm trying to take into every day. I just finished reading this book. It's amazing. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And it's all about basic premise is if the devil doesn't kill you with temptation, he'll kill you with distraction and this metal device.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like it's killing us,
It is. And it's interesting because I went shed hunting with my wife, who's now she likes to go shed hunting since she found some horns. But we were in Montana a couple of weeks ago, and we're out of service, and there is no better feeling than being out of service. I mean, I have my camera and I have my phone because I just like to take pictures with both. But to not have service, that's and like my phone will ring sometimes and I don't like run to my phone, but they hear a ding and I got to see what it was.
Here's some stats, some internet stats. Somebody can fact check me, but I think the average consumer touches his phone over 2,000 times a day. And if you were to take the amount of scrolling, the average screen time and like distance scrolled in a year, it's more miles than a human can run. I've heard it's up to 2.5 miles a day. People are scrolling. Imagine if that time was spent outsid. Like,
yeah,
I'm just thinking how my fingers would be in shape, or my thumb,
American, we are society's.
Yes.
But it comes with all other hosts of problems, disconnection, like a morphed view of reality, like constant, like self-examination and critique, and like trying to measure where you're at against others. And it's just, it's not. There's a lot of beautiful things about social media too, though, and our phones.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back to your story again, and what you were talking about, your moral compass and all of that, and like when you first started going into recovery and started that healing process, like once you got to the healing portion of it, was it something that, like, when you would meet new people, was it something that you kind of just kept inside because you were maybe concerned that people might judge you or something like that based on your past? Or did you have, like, were you surrounded with good enough people where you felt comfortable to tell the story, and then the more you told it, you started to realize that, wow, people actually really do care about me and they're not judging me? And then did that then kind of snowball into you being more comfortable with telling the story? Or
yeah, I mean, that's kind of exactly it. I mean, I was very blessed to be placed into like a really healthy community and situation. My family had the resources to send me to a treatment facility that was very like peer driven and community driven.
Okay.
And and I lived in 12-step programs for the first, year and a half, 2 years, and like built that foundation of like
Mm-hmm.
spiritual and emotional sobriety with a
Yeah.
community. And a big part of that is sharing the story. So I was comfortable with that,
Right.
um,
Right.
it was kind of like, I guess, therapeutic for me in a way. But I've always kind of taken the approach of like live life, like an open book. And but like you talked about with momentum, like the more comfortable you get doing it, the more you do it. But I'm like pretty quickly able to realize in this journey that when you open up to somebody like that and
Mm-hmm.
you show that vulnerability, the reaction and like the depth of the relationship is just exponentially like,
Yeah.
and timelines are expedited.
Mm-hmm.
um and I think I've kind of like like that's like kind of a secret sauce in life, like everybody has their shit, and if you just like
Yeah.
expose yourself and tell the truth and be true to who you are, people are attracted to that. I think
Yeah.
there's a natural like magnetic force field away from people that are trying to like be something they are not.
Yeah.
It might work for a little while, but in the end the truth prevails. But
Mm-hmm.
another thing you said that I kind of wanted to touch on was the moral compass. And you were like, where you asked kind of where I got that, and that's like the second part of this journey. I was raised in a religious household, like Christian, and I went to church on Sundays, but it always felt like school for me.
Yeah.
But you asked where I got my moral compass, and I think the foundation for it was probably from my parents and probably from that Christian upbringing. But when I got sober, I chose not to define God and just not spend a whole lot of time, trying to define it or whatever. I just saw
Mm-hmm.
nature as like God's creation, and God was just kind of the word I used for something that was bigger than me. But I didn't
Yeah.
like spend much time thinking about what it was or um so when you asked the moral compass question, 11 years after I got sober, and this was probably the film was probably 7 years after I got sober, dude, I didn't have a moral compass and I didn't know that. And then like
Mm-hmm.
fast forward to the happenings of 2020 and COVID and everything. And I remember hearing myself say, like, I just want to know the truth. Like I'm on a mission to find the truth. And kind of through a crazy journey, like the last probably 6 or 8 months in my life, like I felt a real calling from Jesus and like this burning curiosity about God.
Yeah.
And there's just so many signs and clips. And I saw Tucker Carlson talking about a clip about kind of UFOs and demons in relation to uh, it was talking about the government hiding it from us, and there's a reason for that. And I've had this like real strong suspicion, just kind of an intuition about what we're being told and about a lot of things. And I got lucky, and I was Turtlebox is one of my main clients, and they plucked me out of a really low point in life. I had left Yeti and gone to a startup, and it was like from day one of being in the startup, like all of my gifts that God's given me, like all my creativity and my ability to connect with people and all my talking skills and everything was confidence really ripped out from under me. It was like a demon was over me and was just like a black cloud like hovering.
Mm.
um, and it was I hung on and tried to do that job for 8 months, and it was just I was absolutely miserable. Like my network felt like it was gone, like totally disconnected and isolated. And I reached out to the guys at Turtlebox because they had mentioned something about me working with them at some point, and I was like, hey guys, I'm kind of looking for something new. And they said yes. We signed on. I started doing community marketing for them, and we had a lot of success in year one. And they're just amazing crew of guys that led this really attractive lifestyle to me. And I'm like kind of curious, and I know they're all men of God, and so I'm just kind of like watching these guys how they operate and how they move. And we were down in South Texas in January hunting deer with them, And one of our rodeo ambassadors was down there, and he's this Australian guy named Anthony Thomas that grew up an orphan, and he's just tough as nails, like this little scrappy dude that has his right arm is like twice the size of his left arm from hanging onto those freaking horses, those broncs. And we're sitting around the dinner table, and he, like, it was like the voice of God came down itself and was like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but basically it was like, what's your beef? What's your holdup with Christianity and with Jesus and with God? And it was like he grabbed my soul and just kind of like shook me, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so I kind of rifled off the three things that I was hung up about, and we sat around and talked about those three things, and they had really good responses to each one, which it was a lot of hypocrisy that I've witnessed in the church in my life. And then it was like, it always felt like a set of rules to me.
Yeah.
And I thought that maybe like what I'd learned or what I knew from science didn't line up with the timelines. And they had answers for everything. And really the one that sticks with me the most was like, it's not like Jesus was sent to abolish the world of religion. Like Christianity isn't a religion, it's a relationship with God.
Yep.
And then I just like had this moment of clarity where I look around me and I'm surrounded by some of the strongest men in the world. And I see the common denominator is that these men have set aside self and are living for, following Jesus. And I'm like, oh, like, why did I refuse this for so long? And so I ended up getting baptized in a Yeti 350 in front of their office.
I love that,
because it was the nearest body of water. But
that's amazing.
That was a few months ago, and it's just been a wild ride since then. But like, my approach to business and life has totally shifted, setting aside self and profits and just trying to take a supportive approach with everything. And the doors that open are kind of, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's a cool, thank you for sharing that. I feel like, a lot of all three of us, our stories align very closely in with what you're saying. And that was the same thing for me. Like I lacked a social or a moral compass completely until I really started to really dive into my faith and all of that. Same thing, grew up Catholic and went, secular because of the rules and all that. And it really took, you have to like kind of hit a point in your life where you're just like, okay, there's got to be something about this. And then of course you look at the people you're surrounded with, like, Ears, I worked with him for many years, and he's a strong, very strong man of God. And so he influenced me in that way. And then you start to go in that direction. And just like you said, you start looking at all of the people that are around you, and you're just like, man, it's almost like, it's like these people were sent to surround me, you know what I mean? To push me over the hump, to really start to dive into that. And then naturally, then all of a sudden you start to look at who you are, what you do, even like just the little things where you're just like, just the little white lies you might tell, where you're just like, it's no big deal. It ain't gonna hurt nobody, and then in the long run, it kind of does, so then I start to have more conviction, and I start to be, just understand that, like, telling the truth sometimes, man, it's tough, but you just do it because it's for the greater good, and it's ultimately, in the end, you look at all the times where maybe you were untruthful, and it just kind of snowballs, and usually now you're just covering a lie with a lie with a lie, and then pretty soon you're gonna get caught, and then you feel like an idiot, and you're embarrassed and ashamed, and creates all that kind of stuff. So anyways, but that's a cool story, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And it's interesting. I mean, what you were just saying, when we did the Kelly Lovelace episode, I let myself go, and I was, when you're excited about it, and then like, I know it's coming, and I know what it's going to be about because we were there doing it, and it's like, now it's kind of scary because I let myself. If you know me now, you really know me, because I put out like the dark places, and everything else that we went through in some parts of our lives, and Ricky did too. And it's interesting that how all these are connected in some way, in a general sense, of course. But yeah, and when when you were talking about being authentic, and I think both of you guys know that when you talk to me, you get Rick Hanson. You don't get anybody else, because I'm just that person. But
Yep.
but let's change it. Let's talk about America, since you were talking about American, and what's more
Mhm.
American than I've been seeing you do a lot of stuff with the Texas Cowboys during and after the fire. Can you
Yeah.
tell us what you've been doing with the fires and what's been going on down there with you?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a longer story, and I think it's all part of this God journey, really, and my relationship with Jesus. But my family has a ranch up in the Panhandle, and fires are a fairly common thing here, but we've been a part of some that we should have lost everything, and miraculously we opened the gate, and the homes are here. Just like really scary stuff. And so I got a phone call the day that the fire started from my best friend's wife, Scotty Campbell, who owns Top of Texas Outfitter. His wife, their home base is 5 miles from my family's place, which is where I'm at right now. I got a call from her saying that the fires had started. It was big, it was bad, it was out of control, and the winds were high. And so it's just like immediately an overdrive. Let's get the sprinklers on and everything. But really, like, there's so much pain and death and destruction from fires. Fires are a natural part of nature and the cycle, and there's a lot of good that comes from it. But a lot of people lost their homes, and a lot of cattle were killed in the fires. And so I had this interest, because of kind of circumstances. I bought a horse 3 months ago because I've always been fascinated with horses. I've loved them since I was a boy. I thought cowboys were the coolest ever. And so I bought the horse, kind of not knowing what I was going to do with it other than ride it for fun around the ranch and have a buddy, because I travel too much to have a dog. But um, so I've got this horse up here with me, and I just like there was a calling for me to come up here, and help out. And so I've just like kind of gotten to know ranchers around the area that need help. But the amount of like support and togetherness that this community has shown through this tragedy, like, it gives me chills just thinking about it. And yeah, there's scripture around that, but through struggle is galvanization. And like, there's some stories about people driving all through the night to deliver hay, and a guy whose home got knocked over 2 years ago by a tornado, and the community came up there and took care of him. He showed up with 3 semi loads full of hay, and then cooked dinner for the ranch the next 3 nights because somebody took care of him when he needed it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've become friends with the 4 Sixes ranch manager, and I got to go help out. And the 4 Sixes is just like world class gold standard for how you ranch
Yeah.
in Texas. It's an iconic outfit, and so I got to go help those guys out. And the amount of miracles that have come out of this are just insane. Like, I think they had 21,000. The Sixes had 21,000 acres burned in the entire half of the ranch. Last October, they cut a fire break just north of the house. There was like a 700-acre strip that ran north to south, and every single cow was on that strip unharmed. And then food trucks of hay start showing up. And that's where that story was that I told you about, of the guy driving, showing up with hay. Like,
Hmm.
it just miracles out of it. And so I have this burning curiosity to learn ranching and learn kind of the beef market. And so I saw an opportunity to come on and get up here and help out. And so it's been a learning journey for me, but like an amazing journey because I've met so many incredible people and heard so many incredible stories along the way.
Well, I grew up on a ranch here in South Dakota, and all for I worked there, and I worked on a ranch in Australia for a year.
Way.
Yeah, and it when I saw you start doing that, and it was quite interesting because it's a way of life and it's a community that many people don't or won't ever see because, like you said, bringing the hay, cooking a meal, and a rancher in South Dakota knows the knows how bad it would be to have a fire in Texas, and if they can help, they would help. And same with Texas coming up, wherever there's a drought, you usually see loads of hay going to somebody like that, or it's an honorable way of life that people don't see. And we talk about wilderness and we talk about growing. There is nothing like being out working the cattle, being out in the dirt and being out in the fresh air and sometimes the smoke of the branding, but I mean it's a way of life that I am happy that I got to grow up in, and I'm happy to learn. I was 1,000 I had to calve out 1,000 heifers, night calve out 1,000 heifers because
And you
I was a
guys do it
young
in the
guy.
winter. You do it in the
And
winter
we
and it's
could
brutal.
exactly. But it was good because I usually go to Australia just before Christmas and stay there till the 1st of January. I mean, the 1st of February. And then we started calving like right after that. So at least I got some warmth and color in my skin before I started the night stuff. but, but
Y-
it, it was fun. It was one of those things you just did.
it's the modern day shepherd. And
Yes.
and you hit the nail on the head. And that's like I mentioned that book earlier, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, but I read that
Hmm.
and like all of these things are coming together in my life, and this curiosity is just like pointing me in that direction. And I'm like, okay, God, it feels like God wants me over here, and so that's where I'm going. And but to wake up on from the back of a horse and know that you've got a brand push 400 cows across a 5,000 acre pasture and then wrestle them and brand them all is like when you're done at the end of the day, you're so smoked, but it's such a fulfilled, amazing feeling. um
And people don't, it's funny how we, in this day and age, but I was 11 years old, and I'm going out with these cowboys. My dad's not even around, and we're wrestling like they challenge you to wrestle the biggest calves that are out. The and it was just fun because I remember I got kicked in the head and laid out and I'm laying there and you're knocked out and you can hear people in the background saying, "Oh, he just got knocked out." They drug me up towards the gate. Then they said, "Go get it. I'll pay you $1 to go get it," and you go do it. It's about being tough, and you go do it,
yep.
and it was fun, and maybe that's why I'm the way I am these days. But
It
it's the way
absolutely
it.
is. But if you like, you go poll anybody that grew up in a ranching or farming household and that
Yep.
grew up working with animals like that and connected, like that's what I believe it is a real good connection to the earth and to the land. They are humble, good people. And it's because you see God create every day. You're in his creation
Hmm.
every day and you're just so connected to it. And there's no doubt in my mind that's the reason that you are the way you are, Rick.
Well, thank you.
You mean like a
I meant
couple?
the cow kick. I meant the
Uh,
cow kick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
oh,
understand.
yeah, I was gonna say a couple screws loose from getting knocked out, maybe.
But I mean, yeah. But it's just that I just love the outdoor the ranching lifestyle. I miss it that I'm not in it as much as I used to be because the, we talk about that, but we also talk. When I talk about calving, I miss that stuff because you're seeing life come into the world, and people don't understand how far a rancher will go just to try to save a life that they don't, I mean,
It's
you
not
saved
for
a,
money. I mean, it is kind of like
no,
you have to do it, but
it is, but there's feeling there. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not, it's just amazing. And I do miss those parts. I actually miss that stuff. And that's the way it is. But that's the
well, I'm
American.
like what I'm doing right now. Yeah, to talk about America, like I'm trying to get a master's degree and learn from as many people as I can because I do
Yeah.
think like the next journey of my life, I really to go to tie it into America, like 85% or 85% of the beef that comes out of Texas comes from the Texas panhandle. And when we get burned up with fires, like we're starting to see the market prices like fluctuate, but they shouldn't be because most of that grocery store meat is coming from overseas, which why, I
Mm.
just think the entire food system is built off of a profit model. And when you have big corporations that are all consolidating up to the top and profit is your number one motive, like ingredients are going to suffer. Like you
Yep.
have to make sacrifices along the way. And I think that we really, as Americans, we've got to localize our food system. And I think that we're seeing this national grid start to fail, or at least people
We are,
are becoming uninterested with it.
Hmm.
we are, because I have some ranch friends that live west of town here that they're butchering their own cattle. And I mean, and people are buying they aren't butchering them themselves, but they're raising them and doing that uh, without going through a packer.
That's
It,
really ultimately that's what I want to do with the
it,
next phase of my life is I want to take all of my marketing skills, networks, and skills that God gave me because I believe He gave me the ability to connect the right people and like build teams. But I want to help ranchers co-op and like fully vertically integrate. Bring people together to do packing plants, feedlots, and then local butcher stands where they can sell it direct to consumer, and then help the ones that have the ability to do e-commerce platforms help them run and manage that. But it like I said earlier, my shift to like my perspective and approach has shifted, and I am like I know that money, like God, if you believe that God is almighty, which I do, all the money on the earth is his anyways. Everything belongs to him. So we're just stewarding his money. And so every morning I've got to wake up and set aside self. You have to make smart decisions, but if you're just doing the right thing and operating as Jesus did, set aside self and take the supportive approach and you're going to come out better on the other end. I believe that because yeah,
it,
God's gotten us where we are. Look around us.
Hmm.
and that's where we're fulfilling our lives, not just filling them. And I when you talk about the Panhandle, and I've only been to Texas once, and that was last summer. I'm trying to picture this. What part? Where are you? Like I went from Dallas to Amarillo, then up through New Mexico. Are you relatively close to that?
Yeah, I'm like, if you skirted north at Childress, I don't know if you remember that town, but yeah, you kind of
Yep, I
and
do.
you went along the Paladera Canyon probably too a little bit or close
Yep,
by. It's a
yep.
lot of plains, and then it drops down, and this badass canyon comes rolling out. It's the second biggest canyon in the U.S. behind the Grand
Oh,
Canyon.
Hmm.
My
really?
buddy and I just secured a really cool hunting lease on it, and we're starting an aoudad outfit.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. That is so cool.
You'll have to come down for sure.
Well,
I
I
mean, the
would.
place
Yeah.
Well,
is
I would.
littered with arrowheads. Like it's going to be really special.
Wow.
That is. Well, and that's another thing because I graduated with a history American Indian Studies degree, so I love that type of history.
Bro, study up on the Paladera Canyon because I just like my information spoon fed to me. So come down and let's go arrowhead hunt and tell me cool stories because I want to share those stories. Or you can be our camp storyteller or our
There you
historian
go.
slash guide.
Well, there
you
we go. I mean, I've seen your pictures coming out, and I knew that you were on the ranching and the fire part, and that was it. People don't realize the devastation that happens, like was happening. I've never seen any fires in my whole life that looked like those in Texas this year, and I truly, and then to see the aftermath with the cattle, laying there in the black. It was heartbreaking, and I know what. Well, I can't say completely I know, but I mean I can imagine how the people felt there, looking at that devastation and going. I mean, it's a life that you have to rebuild again. But that's the cool thing about the lifestyle is they will look at that and they will challenge themselves and they'll come back better than ever.
They will. They are, like, us as a species are so resilient, and we've been told that we're fragile and that we need all this medicine and that we need all these things of comfort around us. But you go look at any guide that outfits in Alaska or Canada or anybody that lives up there, you got to be tough to survive. And we are a tough species, but we've been told, and we tell ourselves that we're not too much.
Oh my god, it makes me think of because we interviewed with Emily Hoggood and she was reading the book Unbroken, and so now I'm reading it, and man, I tell you what, and I've been telling all my crew too. I was like, if I hear you complain about anything, I'm gonna read this book. I'll read this book to you, and you'll realize that 40 days, more than 40 days on the ocean, floating in a raft after, and then getting found by the Japanese and going through their camp and getting beat. And I mean, it's just, yeah. So if there's anything about, you want to talk about humans being resilient, that guy's been through it all.
There's another one that I started reading. I heard Chris Williams, the Chris Will X guy, he talked about it on Rogan podcast, and I can't remember. It's like the forgotten story of the Highlander. I can't remember name. The guy had a similar journey as what you're describing. World War I, World War II, brushed the atomic bomb, and was a prisoner of war. Like, dude, this guy saw it all and lived through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I also heard Taylor Sheridan talk about this and use this analogy back to the panhandle. He said, humans are animals. We're just a species of animal. And we all, like, animals they're either pack animals or they're herd animals. Herd animals live in the city and they're constantly preyed upon. Pack animals live in the country and they look after one another and they take care of each other. Mm-hmm. And I just know, like, for me, I'm a pack animal. Like, I don't belong in the city. I belong in the country. And so I'm just like, it's just been this whole journey. And I think, God's giving me opportunities to learn and hopefully apply them, real life. But I'm kind of trying to, like, balance my life a little bit where I still have a hand in a lot of the marketing and consulting stuff that I love to do. And I believe that my purpose is to kind of share God's message through that and through business, hopefully. But I also want to have my foot in something real and something that allows me to connect and bring people together and enjoy the landscape and the wildlife that God gave us.
That is what life's about. I was thinking about when we talked about COVID and we're talking about cattle in America. It's funny because when people were asking me questions of why I wasn't really worried, I said, have you ever went swimming in a cattle pond in the middle of summer? And everything that's in one of those, if I didn't get sick then, I'm not going to get sick now. And I've done that both.
Again, we're tougher than they told us we were.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are the animals, So I'm not going to leave you here I could talk to you for 2 or 3 hours and that. But I'm going to ask you.
Too.
Good. I like hearing that. Maybe we'll do this again. That would be fun.
In real life, in the Palo Duro.
In real life. Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
But I'm going to ask you our one of our final questions is, what's a good life to Sloane Brown?
I think I'm constantly marching towards that. And I think we all are. But it's very simple. It's not driven by material things, money, or objects. It's driven by experiences, purpose, and connection with really good people that are on the same journey as me. Where
Mm-hmm.
life is just we're traveling through time, and we have, like, I believe our time on the earth is just we have this awareness, this three-dimensional awareness about us, and there's other things happening around us, but this is all we can see. And I just want to live every moment and every day like celebrating and enjoying the goodness of that. um, and to me, I think that's doing something active with my hands and with my feet, and moving and working with people and doing stuff outside. And kind of like leading a life of attraction, and trying to kind of inspire others to do that. And like where my interests, marrying my passions, with hopefully a career, is what I'm always aiming to, because I think as men, we need purpose, and I think we need that output. At least I feel that way about myself. And so, having the luxury of doing something that you enjoy every day makes it a lot more fun rather than fighting it. Um, and so I just think, you know, our society and our culture a lot of times is too caught up with the material things. And I feel like maybe there's a shift starting to happen away from that, and awareness happening, like some kind of awakening. It just feels like that. And maybe that's because it's closer to me and that's happening within me. But it seems like there's other people kind of marching at the
Well,
same thing.
well, that's awesome because, like, Cindy and I decided when we got married that we didn't want to live for a house payment. I, and especially me, I I want the adventure. I don't. I want. I'm gonna die with my memories, but I'm not gonna die with my money. I'd rather have those memories, and I would rather have. Here's what I'd rather. Here's what I would love in a legacy.
Can you read that Bible verse there?
Yep,
Matthew six
Matthew.
nineteen to
Yep,
21.
yep.
That's it. And I was going to say, I felt like I was getting too long winded, but I think I heard a
No.
stat the other day that the average, there's enough storage facilities in America that the average, I think each American citizen has like a 10 by 10 foot storage unit. And that's just to collect and hold your things and just let them have dust. Like, what could we be doing with just that land? Just think about what we could be doing with that land
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that's covered in metal and people's objects that they're not doing anything with.
Yeah.
Because I hope someday that you two go. Do you remember that stupid thing Rick did, or whatever? I mean, I want to put a smile on people's faces and with a memory. Not. Did you know? What? Money wise, I'd rather have a memory of something. Or of someone, and that's important to me. So.
Yeah, setting
Yeah.
aside the worldly treasures for the heavenly treasures, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm really feeling that too. When I bought my house like 8 years ago, I bought outside of the city, and just wanted to get a little piece of land and start trying to be a farmer. And, because I kind of grew up in the city, and man, it's tough. So when you guys are talking about ranching and all that kind of stuff, I had some family that had farms, but I wasn't really immersed in it, but it's like, and then the next step is going to be, we're working on getting chickens, and then, who knows, the sky's the limit from there. My wife really wants to get a goat really bad. And whether we get, when we get there, hopefully we will, but I'm with you on that. I think everybody's kind of feeling that, I'm to the point where I want to bury a large storage container in my backyard and build a bunker too, just in case something, goes crazy in the world. So, but yeah, I'm feeling that. And we're purging. I mean, we're just getting rid of stuff, you know, like I bought this house and you just start collecting things. It's like, holy mackerel, how much more stuff can we, and when we got married and all of our stuff came together, it was overwhelming. I'm like, where are we even going to put all this stuff?
So, and then when you think about that, like I've been talking about this a lot lately with friends, like, if you go out and buy something, say that the sweatshirts you guys are wearing, like that used to be cotton that we saw a lot of slaves pick here in the United States, but that is now not okay. And we've outsourced that to machines and people overseas that we don't see, out of sight, out of mind. But there is still, when you purchase something, that's a contract and that's a sacrifice. Like somebody had to make the sacrifice in some way, shape, form, time. Like
Yeah.
there was so everything that you have like contributes to that, and for what avail? Like to what,
Mhm.
Yep. No, I understand.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that, it's like, man, you really strip it down to what you need, and like it's just better for everything, for the earth, for the world, for people. And I heard an interesting podcast the other day talking about famine, and like, I'm like, we got to be headed that direction, like the way we're consuming.
100%. And the problem is people don't understand where their food come from. Some of them, like you said, the herd people don't really understand where the food really comes from, and we need to think about that stuff too.
Yeah, I think, it's important. I think that's a major cause of a lot of unhappiness is, again, like that lack of connection. Like when
Yeah.
you eat a steak from a
Yep.
rancher that or a vegetable that you either grew in your backyard or your friend grew it, it is a different experience than a store-bought steak that you had zero connection to, because
Mhm.
all that grocery store is a paid hitman to go out and source that beef for you because you're not good enough. You're not cool doing it on your own.
Mhm.
And it adds value to that food because I know who raised that food. Like that steak, I
And
can
you're
go
supporting, by eating that food, you're supporting that family.
exactly, and I can go say that steak was amazing, and tell them that and support their way of life too.
And hopefully they're doing it sustainably and doing it to where it supports the earth, and it all, like, man, the Native Americans kind of had it figured out, really, if you look at it. I mean, there was a lot of
Yep.
war and greed and all
Yeah,
of that happening. They weren't perfect by any means. It's the human
no,
condition, but the way they lived off the land, at least from what I know about it, seemed to be
yep,
like far more sustainable.
Mhm.
yep, definitely.
And so there's truth in that. And like I kind of believe that life and it repeats itself. It's a cycle. And I'm looking at a lot of the world happenings right now, and to me, like my moral compass and my truth comes from the Bible now. Like it's it's undeniable to me that that's the truth. And if I am feeling scared or anxious about something, like you can look there. There's the playbook. Like it's all there.
I'm a I'm a big Psalms fan. I don't know why, I I mean in Psalms I see the whole story of ups and downs and lies and truths and David and Saul and I could it was just an interesting story to me I mean not story but it was an interesting time where Kelly and I had talked a lot about Psalms and I never understand it but it's just if people read that they understand that people go through a lot of stuff and this is how you can fix it because like you said everything goes around in a circle and it all comes back around. It's funny how we never learn from our errors in life sometimes. I mean, we can't look at the history and say this happened before. We just keep on going in a circle.
Well, and I heard an interesting thought or theory the other day. Like the minute that we get everybody, every single human on planet Earth operating in kind of the Jesus frequency, that's eternity.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But it's that, and that's kind of like, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that's kind of the battle that we're fighting, is good and evil, And
100%. Well, I just want to say thank you, Sloane. I truly appreciated this conversation. It was enlightening, and it was amazing, and it was just one of those great conversations that I learned something new every day.
Likewise,
Yeah,
it's always fun talking to you, because you're very real and truth. Yeah, you can get so much further when somebody is that way. And you too, Ricky. And just all we did was hit record on a conversation, but I hope that it leads to something else, because you guys are special dudes.
Well, thank you. I mean, we're trying to change the world one person at a time. I hope by people listening to whatever we're saying, I mean, we're learning more from the people that we interview, and and I hope other people do too. And try to keep that. Go ahead.
Yeah, just such an amazing conversation, and again, this part of why I love doing this podcasting stuff, because I don't always find myself in positions where I can have these conversations with people, so to actually like reach out and say, let's talk, let's hash it out. And so it's great to learn some new things that I didn't know about you. And I also want to say thank you for taking the time to be here and to be vulnerable and talk about those things with us. And I also want to thank you for, your time at Yeti and helping us out while you were there. And man, it was devastating when you left, because it took me a long time to try to get things figured out after you were gone. But we got it figured out. And, again, yeah, just an honor to have a chat with you, and really appreciate you sitting down with us.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me on. I genuinely enjoyed the conversation and learned from you guys as well. And I love seeing my friends succeed. And to me, success is like doing what you love and doing it well. So, congratulations to you guys.
Yeah,
well, thank you. These conversations just are amazing, and I am just this is what it's about to me, is these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're going to look back on the podcast technology, and be like, wow, that changed a lot of things,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
good on you guys for doing it and chasing it and doing the work, because it takes a lot of work too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, it is, for sure.
But anyway, Sloane, would you, here's one thing I would like you to do when you get time, is go to the Kelly Lovelace episode and listen to that. If you listen to any of ours, besides, go to that one, because when you started talking, I'm going, if you would know, I let that thing go, and then Ricky gets in, and he went through the same thing, and it's like somewhat, and we're going, and it's just how the connections happen when people start letting go. Because when we went and had this conversation, I didn't tell Ricky what was going to happen. I just said, because I wanted him to ask the questions, but I told people, like, there was a couple of close times. I went through my divorce, and there's a couple close times that, you could have tasted gunmetal, and you know what I mean, kind of things, and how in fact, the relationship, when you talk about relationship with God, that's what Kelly Lovelace, that's what Kelly started out. It's a relationship. It's not just this, and that's where I found myself too. And it was fun. It was just, it's like, how you have that rush of energy came at me when you started talking like that. It's like, there's even more of a connection. You know what I mean? And so if you get the chance, listen to that one, because it's awesome.
I've got some travel.
Yeah.
I'm actually going up to Denver for the Mile High Hunt and Fish Expo this weekend, so I'm going to download it for the flight.
Oh, and I'm going actually out to Minneapolis to see Ricky.
Yeah.
But I was going to go down to that otherwise. So, when are you going to any tax?
Yeah, I'll see you probably in a couple weeks. Oh, well, I'm going to Texas. I don't know if I'm doing the Dakotas. Texas,
Okay.
Big Sky, Utah for sure. And if I can squeeze
You'll
in
see me
more,
in
I
Big
will.
Sky for sure.
Heck yeah. Cool.
Yep. So
We'll be there in full force.
I can't wait to see
Full
you there
force.
then. But no,
real quick too, Sloane, if anybody wants to look you up or if they want to, check you out on social media, where can they find you at?
I do mostly everything on Instagram, and it's S_L_Brown.
Okay. Perfect.
And lots of goofy videos, and I just kind of throw up whatever feels right to me. So apologies if I offend anyone. Or
No, that's great. And then we talked a little bit about earlier too about the film, the RMEF film, Saving Grace. So make sure you head over to YouTube. Everybody check that out. It's an amazing story. So make sure you get over there and give that a watch as well.
Hey, this is the first time I've told the second phase of my journey, the baptism phase of my journey on any media.
Awesome.
So I'm stoked to get to do it, you guys. Yeah.
Thanks,
thank you.
Heck yeah.
And
I'm honored.
And then we're actually going to collaborate, and we're climbing. I'm going to do 7 peaks. Well, I mean, Ricky and I and a couple other people are going to do 7 peaks in the Black Hills in 24 hours. And we're collaborating with Sober Cowboy. Have you ever heard of Sober Cowboy?
Dude, she just followed me. Is it a girl or a page?
Yeah, Lacey.
Yeah.
Lacey, and we're collaborating with her, and I'm going up to the Buckhorn sale, and we're going to talk to her up in Miles City, and then we'll do a podcast with her. But
I'm all in. Whatever I can do to support, I'm there. I'm in.
All right, but let me know if you know anything too. Yeah,
I will. I'll keep you posted for sure. I'm gonna go poke around right now.
Well, you are awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Sloane, and I truly appreciate the conversation, and I hope we get to talk to you again.
Likewise. Rick,
thanks, man.
You guys are awesome. Keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you, brother.
Keep chasing your dreams and don't die rusty.
Don't die rusty.
You guys too. See you next time.
See you later.
Catch you later, man.